What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic, and even though Disney World and Universal Studios do not release their attendance reports, we do have an annual report that does give us an indication of what theme park attendance looked like. And just yesterday, we got the Themed Entertainment Association theme park attendance numbers for 2024. So in this video, we're going to go through what those looked like for both Disney World and Universal Studios and see if this has any correlation of what we might see for 2025 and beyond. So this is from Blog Mickey, and it says 2024 attendance report, modest gains at Walt Disney World, and the downturn continues at Universal Orlando, which, if you've been watching this channel very long, was basically expecting what we're seeing here. Was assuming, given Epic Universe was opening up the year, and 2024 was going to be opening up that next year. So more than likely, they were going to see a dip in their attendance, but we're going to take a look at how much and, what modest gains did Disney make here. It says the 2024 T Global Experience Index was released this morning, shedding some light on attendance trends at the world's most popular theme parks, water parks, and more. The T attendance report is the industry standard in estimating attendance at the top theme parks and museums worldwide. If you're wondering about museums, this is the report for you. While the theme parks do not release attendance figures publicly, the T index is widely accepted within the industry as having accurate estimates. I would like to know how they get those estimates. I don't believe they've ever talked about that, but it is recognized as sort of the gold standard, but I don't know how they come about them. But it says, before we look at this year's numbers, here's some context of what's been reported in the past few years. This is coming out of the COVID-19 shutdowns. Universal Orlando started to make up some ground on Disney. Well, they were making up ground on Disney before that. I have a chart we're going to look at to give a good picture since 2010. But of course, nobody is getting close to Magic Kingdom. True. But there was some serious competition between Universal Orlando's 2 theme parks and the remaining 3 theme parks at Walt Disney World in terms of raw attendance. That said, 2023 was a rough year for Universal as each of its theme parks lost roughly 1 million visitors. And I have a chart we'll look at in a moment instead of reading through these numbers here that gives us a better picture of this. But basically, up until COVID happened, Universal was gaining ground, and then COVID happened, they all took a dip. And then since 2020, the reopening, that's when Universal had made a lot of strides up until about 2023, and then a little bit of a downturn. But again, we'll take a look at a chart here in a second. It says, now 2024 attendance estimates figures are out, and the downward trend for Universal Orlando continues. None of the Walt Disney World theme parks lost attendance in 2024, but Disney had stated that attendance was relatively flat, which basically this is what it shows. They had some gains, but relatively speaking, it was rather flat. The new report from the T report seems to support the data that this was flat attendance for Disney. And then basically when you're looking at this, Magic Kingdom had 17.85 million visitors. Epcot had 12.13 million. Hollywood Studios had 10.3 million. Universal Studios Florida had 9.5 million. Islands of Adventure had 9.45 million. And Animal Kingdom had 8.8 million. So Magic Kingdom had an increase of 0.7%. Epcot had an increase of 1.3%. Hollywood Studios had an increase of 0.3%, and Animal Kingdom had a growth of 0.3% as well. And then Universal Studios Florida saw a decrease of 2.6%, and then Islands of Adventure lost 5.5%. So a pretty significant drop off there for Universal, and basically a little growth for Disney, but I think within 1% there, you're kind of flat, but they did have an increase somewhat in their attendance there. So talking about Universal, it says both Universal Orlando theme parks saw a decline in guests for the second year in a row. The decline came after a 2022 high where both Universal Orlando theme parks overtook 3 of the 4 Disney theme parks. Says now both theme parks have returned to only being above Disney's Animal Kingdom. The Universal Orlando Resort story is a little bit rougher to nail down, given that the existing theme park saw little in terms of major expansions as Universal's Epic Universe was being built. To that end, both parks sort of limped across the finish line in 2024 as tourists seemingly waited until summer 2025 to visit after Epic Universe had opened. I think that's the very obvious thing here when you're looking at this, and we'll talk about it more in a second. Islands of Adventure saw the biggest percentage dip in Orlando at negative 5.5%. Again, the existing theme parks were likely hurt by guests postponing visits to Universal Orlando until Epic Universe opened. It's also possible that the high watermark set in 2022 is simply an outlier. And to give us a more of a visual indicator, I'm a visual person, so a chart here is kind of better for me, at least, to look at this instead of just looking at numbers. So this is since 2010, and this is up to 2024 right here. So you can see Magic Kingdom has been the top one the entire time, undisputed. That's the number one theme park in the world. Then you have here the light blue is Epcot. The yellow is Animal Kingdom. The green is Hollywood Studios. And then the dark orange is Islands of Adventure. And then the just straight blue is Universal Studios Florida. So you can see kind of, if we use 2020 as sort of the delineating mark here of looking at this, Universal was gaining quite a bit there on Disney, being almost, they started out way down here in 2010. And by 2019, they had narrowed that gap quite a bit. Animal Kingdom surprisingly saw quite a jump in their attendance. They were actually number 2 in 2019. And then once COVID hits, in the recovery part, this is where you saw Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios recover much better, actually beating out, like I mentioned before, beating out the 3 out of the other 4 Disney theme parks. Since then, Epcot has had a recovery. Animal Kingdom has been struggling, and I think that is going to continue for the coming years. And then you see here that the Universal attendance peaked in 2022 and it's kind of gone down a little bit, about at the levels it was close to, say, 2018, 2019 range. And then you got Hollywood Studios, coming down a tad bit here. So basically, it's kind of interesting when you look at this because Disney has not recovered their attendance that they lost from before 2020. But Disney has also shifted to where they're not really as concerned about attendance numbers as they've made a lot more money from the theme parks, making the changes they made to charging for fast passes that are now lightning lanes. A lot of the park changes there. So their attendance, especially look at Animal Kingdom, has had a massive drop off there. And basically Epcot is the closest, I would say, to hitting its pre-2020 mark here, at least in 2024. And so looking at this chart, at least to me, none of this is surprising. I mean, basically, it was Disney had even said before that basically their attendance numbers were relatively flat, which this does show that. Not a massive drop-off here or anything like that. And it also makes a ton of sense as well that people looking to go to Universal were going to wait until Epic Universe opened. Because if you're looking, outside of locals, which I think a lot of the locals say 2023, 2024 was probably held up a lot by locals and annual pass holders. Just given if you were going to spend thousands of dollars on a vacation, you were likely just going to wait until Epic Universe opens to go. So that makes sense. I was expecting there would be a drop off in the attendance for Universal, and definitely that's showing on the T report here that that's the case. If you look at the actual chart here from the T report here, so you see Magic Kingdom is still number 1 in the world. Disneyland is actually number 2, which is pretty interesting. It's getting right up there, nipping at the heels of Magic Kingdom. So presumably, if there was a fall off a little bit at Magic Kingdom or the Disney parks this past summer or this past year, you could see Disneyland pop into that number 1 spot, which would be kind of interesting. Universal Studios Japan was number 3. Tokyo Disneyland was number 4. Shanghai Disneyland was number 5. Then you had Chimelong Ocean Kingdom in China was number 6. Tokyo Disney Sea was number 7. Epcot was 8. Hollywood Studios 9. Disneyland Paris was 10. California Adventure was 11. And then Universal Studios Beijing 12. Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure both 13th and 14th. So they fell quite a bit there. And then Animal Kingdom is at 15. And I think likely what you'll see in 2025 is that Universal will see an uptick in their numbers. More than likely, Epic Universe won't even make the top 15 because, I mean, if you go off of what the caps on the park probably are, you might be looking at Epic Universe for 2025 being somewhere north of 3 million, maybe, depending on where that's at. That would be my guess in terms of what the attendance there is. Now, I do think you're going to see a bump for Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure as there are more people going there. They talked about the revenues has already been up after 1 month of Epic Universe being on the books. More than likely in the next earnings report, that will also reflect that because we do know that the tax income based on hotel stays for the local Orange County in Orlando has had record-breaking numbers every single month that Epic Universe has been open, and the local government has credited Epic Universe for that, that growth there. So I don't think there's really going to be any argument that Universal is going to see an increase. I suppose it'll just be how much. And then the other question is just going to be, did Disney see a fall off in 2025? I think that's the big question people have out there, and probably more towards summer and going into the fall of this year. And there were reports by touring plans and other outlets that were saying that Disney attendance this summer specifically was lower, closer to 2021, 2022 numbers than it had been previously. But for anybody thinking that Epic Universe was going to be breaking into the top 5 or anything like that, that is not going to happen for 2025. I think when you're looking at Epic Universe, you could start seeing it make its way into this list here. I mean, it really depends. They're still not able to get a lot of people into that park like they want. That park, they want a park capacity around 40 to 50,000 guests in there. Last time I had heard anything specific on that, it was still being capped well under 20,000 guests per day. There's still no annual pass holder option there. Probably, in my opinion, may not be one in 2026. So, you may not see Epic Universe really break much into this until you start getting into 2027s and beyond. But I do think Universal and the other parks, Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, will have an increase here. So I think looking into next year, that's likely what will be the case. And then it'll be interesting to see where Disney falls into this. But, losing 5% of your attendance at Islands of Adventure is not good, which I think does point to the fact that even though Epic Universe is online now, there's lots of areas of the Universal parks that definitely need some new things added to them. As if you go to Epic Universe and then you go over to the existing parks, there's a difference in the quality you see there because Epic Universe is a brand new theme park. So I do think they need to bring up a lot of aspects of the existing parks. But I think this is also why, since Epic Universe has been opened, you're seeing Universal already replacing Rip Ride Rocket. There's something going to be going on at Lost Continent as they are getting ready to demolish that area. Universal has not said what is replacing it, but it's very likely something coming very soon. And Mark Woodbury himself has teased that there are more things coming to the Universal park. So I think that looking at this, obviously Universal probably knew this as well, which makes a lot of sense as to why they are announcing more things coming to the other parks outside of Epic Universe. So I think when you're looking at between Disney and Universal, Disney's clearly still the number one destination. Universal is still in a market share mode. But I think when you're looking at this, what's going to be really interesting is the next few years, because the same thing that happened to Universal Studios with Epic Universe being built, people putting off trips because of that, I think the exact same thing will apply to Disney World, as you're going to have a lot of construction in those parks, 3 out of the 4 theme parks, for the foreseeable future. And the main difference there also being Epic Universe was being built, but it didn't have an impact on the guest experience because it was a brand new park that was a ways away from the other theme parks. With Disney, you have construction going on in theme parks where people are going to be interacting with this, this construction. They're going to be impacted by it. So that is in itself many times can lead people to not going on trips while parks are under heavy construction, on top of the fact that people, even if they are excited about the things that are coming to Disney, they very well just may wait until these things are done before spending the money that would cost to go to Disney. So I think those two factors also going into whatever impact Epic Universe has had on Disney's attendance, I do think you will probably more than likely see a decrease somewhat in 2025. I don't think you're going to see anything like fall off a cliff or anything of that nature. But 2026 could be really interesting because realistically speaking, the first thing to come online for Disney is going to be the construction over in Animal Kingdom. That is presumably, Disney has said before, 2027. We'll see. But you're going to have at least a few years at the very least for Disney's theme parks to be under construction before anything new opens. So I think when you're looking at these, honestly, I think a win for Disney during this time period is if they were able to basically just maintain their attendance level until the new things that they are building are open. And I think it'll just be very interesting the next 5 years, as Universal has already stated that they say that they are already, increasing in their market share since Epic has been opened. We'll probably get a lot of how the later part of the year goes for both Disney and Universal in the earnings call coming up, I believe in November, to see the revenue side of things. Again, they don't give attendance numbers, but they do give revenue reports. So I think very likely we will see Universal have another quarter of increased revenues since Epic has been opened. And then Disney's, we will wait and see what they say. And so, this is going to be a continuing thing year by year just to see how much ground is Universal able to make up, especially before Disney gets the things done that they're building. And then once those things are built, what kind of impact does it have? So I think you're just going to see this back and forth between the two destinations as they continue to build things and add things to the parks and everything of that nature. But in terms of 2024 numbers, I'm not surprised by any of this, and we'll have to wait and see on those numbers next year. So this time next year, we can see the 2025 attendance report numbers and see how things shook out from an attendance standpoint when it comes to Disney and Universal. But when that report comes out, we will talk about it here and let you know about it. But for now, that is going to be it, though, for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.